Today, I want to introduce you to Josh Knutson. He is a career coach at the LSU Olinde Career Center. He's going to talk a little bit about resume writing for you because you need to create your resume. I wanted also to connect you with the Career Center. So I asked him to come because you need to know this resource is there for you. It is amazing. It is an amazing way for you to update your resume, create your resume. It's an amazing way for you to have some counseling on even interview skills. So I've connected that with you through him. And also, there's a link in my resume presentation, and I'll put that on Moodle for you so that you can check it out yourself. So it would cost you big bucks to have this kind of service if you looked for it, but it's right here in campus. Amazing people with great credentials. I want you to check them out. So we'll let Josh come in and teach us a little bit about resume writing.
Well, hey
So
everyone. Oh, sorry.
that's okay. Go ahead, Josh. I was going to say, here's Josh.
Hey everyone, it's so nice to meet you. I'm Josh Knutson. I'm a career coach here at the LSU Olin Career Center. And we're really excited just to talk to you, of course, about resumes today, but also just the Career Center as a whole. We see this as an incredible resource, really for whatever you feel like is next in your career journey. So for a lot of students, that is exploring and kind of talking about major and pathways and what am I going to do with kind of the next steps? And for other students, it's much more focused on experience and finding experience and thinking about experiences after you graduate. So full-time jobs, grad school, personal statements, wherever you find yourself at in the process, either right now or as you keep going through LSU, we will be here for the next step. So we do quite a bit. We're also really known for our career fairs and all the different types of events that we do. So we're always putting on events, always putting on different fairs for students to connect with employers and just to explore all the options that they have. So I'm really happy to be here today. We would love to see you come and visit us in person in the fall or virtually for appointments. We're always looking to have more conversations. I'm going to share my screen and we're going to look a little bit more at resumes today. And a lot of you may have a resume already. Maybe this is a completely new topic, or maybe this is something that you feel really comfortable with. But we're going to look at them today, and hopefully, as we go through this, you'll kind of pick up a couple of things that you can really think of with your resume and what you'd really like to improve on it. I always like to show this first. Who would you hire, right? And this can apply to mass comm or really any different type of industry, because a lot of what this is all about is why a resume is important in the first place. Some people really like to think of resumes as a way to get through around, but a lot of it is really just your way of representing yourself. So these are two different resumes. Both have their strengths, both have their things that they could work on. But I like to show both of these. Here's the first one, and here's the second one. And you might be kind of seeing some of these images and thinking of what you like about this or what you would improve on. But this is a really great exercise just to show the importance of a resume. Most people, unless you're really into color or things like that, most people would probably go with the second resume for a lot of different reasons, but it's very crisp. It does a lot of things really well. It's very professional. And we're going to talk about why a little bit more. But definitely think about that and just the way that you would like to represent yourself and put your experiences on paper. And if this is a new thing for you, if you're just looking to start over, we always encourage students to start with a plain Word document. A lot of people like to use templates. We really discourage that because you don't have as much control over what you do. There's some interesting formatting with those. Usually color is an aspect of that. So we always just say, start from scratch, start with a plain document, and you're going to make it exactly the way you want to. And before you get going, we say to list everything. So a lot of people think of resumes as just experiences and jobs, things you get paid for. But resumes are really a great place for really everything that you've done. You really have a lot of experience, even if you haven't even had a job before. You do class projects. There's volunteering. There's tons of other activities and other things that you're involved with. And these are all great things to put on your resume as well. We always say to tailor the resume. So if this is to get into School of Mass Comm, right? Or if this is to get into a full-time job, always focus on tailoring the resume to really what that position is looking for and what they're asking for. And let's keep going. We always also say to prioritize the information. We're going to start with the top of the resume and work our way down a little bit, but prioritize it because usually the way that people review resumes is top down. So we really want the significant pieces on the top and to work our way down towards the bottom. We're going to start with the headers. And this is a great place to put a lot of your basic information, right? So this is a place for your name, your address. The great thing that I see too is you don't have to put your full address. This is kind of a misconception. If you do want to add this, this is optional, but you can just do city and state. Other pieces that we see that are essential too, of course, are your phone number, your email. We also see this as a great space for a professional website like a LinkedIn, maybe a portfolio or something like that. This is a great place for that to be added as well. And let's keep going. When we look at resumes, I personally like to follow all of the C's. So as we kind of see an example here, pay attention to that. The C's that I focus on, our resume should be clear and concise, consistent content. And those are kind of the things too, if you're kind of thinking, is this a good resume as I'm working through this? Those are some of the words definitely to focus on. And I'll explain a little bit more of those as we go. This is a great simple header. Michelle Tiger, great job. The name is very clear. It's very easy to see, but it's not something that's jumping off the page or really overwhelming. It's very confident. It's right there in the middle. It's very easy to see and notice. Education is typically what comes next. And I've seen these done in a lot of different ways. These are some of the basics that we really look for and that we really prioritize. Always add the name and location of your college and university. We'll show you a way that we usually like to do this, but always have LSU first, especially if that's the degree that you're working on currently. We get a lot of questions from students about high school and some of those types of questions, or even community college. Those are kind of case by case. In general, I would like to say that we typically say to remove high school for sure by the end of your freshman year of college. Everyone's a little different with that, but that's usually a good rule to follow. This is also a great space to add really specifics with your major, minor, and concentration, as well as GPA, especially if you feel like you have a GPA over a 3.0. I like to see students also adding coursework, thesis types of things in here as well. This is a great place to personalize what your education has meant to you and maybe how it sets you apart, maybe some specific classes and electives that you've taken that other people don't have the opportunity to take. This is what it looks like for us when we go through it. Like I said, all the C's. So it's very, very consistent with itself in the formatting. It's very clean and it's very concise. It's not taking up too much space, but it has all the core elements right there. Experience is the next piece. And this is a really good one. This is really where we see the bulk of the content when people do their resumes. At least in the example that we use, I would say experience probably takes up about 2/3 of the page, which is really helpful to know because that's definitely going to be mostly what people are looking for with this. What are the things that you've been really involved with? What have you done? And the ways that we write the experience section is probably one of the most challenging things for people to do. It's always like, I've done this job, but I have no idea what to say and how to talk about it. We like to use the formula for bullet points. So when you're writing what you've done at whether it's a referee job or a waitress job or an on-campus position or an internship, whatever it is, this is typically the formula to follow. We're always going to start with a strong action verb, right? Something really strong, something really powerful. This is also a great place to tailor, especially when you see these types of verbs on the job description. Then you're going to add the different tasks that you did or how you accomplished that. Sometimes this involves who the people were that you were working with or what were the means that you were able to do this task. And the last part, of course, is the results of what happens. Sometimes this one is optional, but this is a great place to include things like customer service or growth, increase in something. And this is typically the way that these bullet points go. When you're thinking of your experience, I always encourage students to think of everything that they've done. As you can see in a second in our resume, there's positions that people got paid for, right? But there's also internships. Even we see students add volunteer work or even project work, different types of things that you feel like will be really transferable to whatever you're using your resume for. And here's the experience section. Typically, like I said, concise is also a piece of resumes. This is all on one page. So if you're working on your resume right now and you're like, I'm not sure if I can get this down to one page, this is a great way to show that you can actually have quite a bit of content on one page. As you can see on this example, there's 4 different experiences that all do a really great job at explaining what they do. Typically, we see that every experience that students have will have at least 3 bullet points connected to explaining what they've done. And that's a pretty good rule of thumb to follow. If you're thinking of, should I include this experience or should I not? If you can have 3 bullet points for it, that's probably going to be a great thing to add onto your resume. We always do experiences in descending order. So as you can see on this example, this human resource intern position is probably the most current position, and the resident assistant position is something that is the oldest position, or the one that ended the longest ago. But we would like to show all these different experiences because all 4 of these are really powerful. They all really show different skill sets and different types of things that this candidate or the student has really been involved with. They all use very different strong verbs. They don't really have a lot of repeats there. And it shows a lot of different things that the student has done. So hopefully you can see that and feel encouraged. It doesn't all have to be about internships or jobs. There's a lot of opportunities for other positions or other types of experiences as well. And that's something that the Career Center is going to be really helpful with if you're trying to process this and think about what those positions are that you want to add to your resume. This is the last section typically for students, unless you're writing like a CV or something different. Typically the last piece for resumes is everything else, right? And this is where we see students get really creative. We have some different resume samples that we like to show as well. The one that I'm working with today is classic. It's a really great resume, but definitely don't see this as the only option in how to structure your content. But typically this is the rest. This is your activities, your honors, your skills, maybe your languages, your technical kind of connection. A lot of different types of things can go in this section. So really this is a space where you get to be really creative, because this is kind of the rest of kind of what makes you you and what you have experience with. One question I do get a lot of times from students is, what do I do with skills, right? And typically we'll say those power skills, or sometimes people call them soft skills, those are going to be great skills to include in your bullet points, or find a way to incorporate that into your bullet points of your experience. Typically with the skills section, usually this is kind of connected to languages that you know, technology that you're connected with. Maybe you use a software or certain types of things really that are connected to mass comm or to work that you've done. This is a great place to include a lot of that. But also, of course, your activities, your honors, other things that you've been involved with. And this is an example of how that goes. What I like a lot about this resume is that this is a very concise way to list all of this. It's stuff that's very important to this student, but it's not something that necessarily took up a lot of space. So it's very easy for someone to see this and assess it and see what's going on with this resume, but it's not going to be something that takes up a full page. And typically I see with students, this is the kind of thing that really can accentuate the resume, right? Students like to list all the different clubs that they were in high school, or all the different scholarships they have. This is a great example of ways that you can kind of narrow that down and make it a little bit more concise and still have it be represented. And that is one page. This is one example of a resume. Like I said, the Career Center is an excellent place to go to continue to work on this and refine it. We do drop-ins. So if you ever want to just see us in person and say, hey, here's my resume, I'd love to talk about this. We do that every day from 8 to 4:30. So that's a great opportunity if you're just looking for some quick advice. But we also do appointments as well that are 30 minutes or even an hour if you're really looking to spend a lot of time with this. These are a couple quick little reminders about resumes, but some of the basics, right? Plenty of space. The one that we showed today had a lot of content, but it wasn't too overwhelming, right? It had a really good font size. The margins were really appropriate. They're somewhere in the 0.5 to 1 inch range. And if you ever do print it off, resumes are great to print off in quality paper. Couple other tips as well. We usually say don't talk about salary, don't talk about preferences, or even have references. Those are things that can come later or come on a different sheet of paper. And that is the rest of our content for today. So I hope this process goes really well for you. I hope you really enjoy writing your resume. It's definitely a fun process. But talk to us at any point if you're ever looking for some help or some advice with it.
Thanks, Josh. That's really, really good. I have a couple of questions that students might find helpful. So what do you see, especially most of the students in this class, this is their first mass comm class or one of their first ones. They may not have created a resume at this point. What is the biggest of the biggest are some things that you see that are mistakes that you want to avoid in that first resume?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think there's the mentality mistakes and then there's kind of the practical mistakes. I think one of the first mistakes I hear from students is I don't have enough to fill a page or I don't have any experience. That is typically not true. And that's really why we like to, when we talk to students, we're always asking about everything, right? If you were a babysitter or if you worked at a restaurant, those are actually really significant experiences that we can expand out. If you have done a lot of work in a volunteer sector, if you've done something like that, that is incredible work that you can put on your resume too. So I think the first mistake is just believing that you can't fill that page or can't write a resume. And if that's something that you're experiencing, we can definitely talk to you about that a little bit more. Some of the technical mistakes too, I would just say is just not really being consistent with the formatting and getting lazy with that. It's definitely something that takes some technical attention to look to, but definitely let this be something that defines you and something that you're proud of as a person, that you feel like it represents you well, but you also want it to be something that's professional and something that you can be really proud of too.
So my second question is the formatting can be a beast for these kinds of documents. So a template is quite helpful. I've used them.
Mhm.
So what do you recommend there for students to find a way to help with their formatting?
Yeah. And there's definitely different ways to do this. I have seen some templates that do a decent job. I mean, that's typically why we give the blanket statement of just try to start from scratch if you can. We actually have somewhat of a format or a template on our website, not necessarily fillable, but just something that kind of walks you through how to do this, what to put in, right? So if you are looking for something that's kind of in between maybe a template and just doing it completely from a blank page, we do have a few resources on our website that do connect to that and that give a little bit more guidance on, I have no idea where to put my name, or I'm not sure kind of how to do these bullet points or things like that. So if that's something that you feel like would be really useful to you, we have that on the students tab of our website.
Great, great. Well, thanks so much, Josh, for helping us get to this first step and at least being able to start and to know which direction to go in. We really appreciate it.
No problem. Yeah, thanks so much for having me, and yeah, enjoy the resume process. It's exciting. Bye, everyone.